Hello, great people, African traveler again. Today is a beautiful day, and you're going to take this day just to review some of the major projects undertaken by the previous regime, the Uhuru Kenyatta's government. So right now we have a different government that is under President William Ruto. Some of the major projects especially undertaken within Nairobi, the economic significance, the impact that it has had on the city and in the country, both negative and positive. So I hope you guys will be here with us as we review, as we travel across the city, showing you some of the major projects that have been done and some of the current ones that were just finished the other day, such as the Eastern Bypass expansion. Let's start off by some of the most positive news affecting the city of Nairobi in the recent past. Just in 2022, Nairobi added another star by beating all African cities in luxury property gains in the recent report by the Prime Global City Index by Knight Frank, which listed Nairobi as the only African city listed among the 45 global cities that recorded annual growth in the third quarter of 2022. Shows that the city ranking has moved up 7 places to 29 in the last 12 months to September, from 35 in the same period last year. This was 2 positions ahead of London, which ranked 31st, and 1 position behind Geneva. In 2022, added another star on the best cities in Africa. According to a new survey, the latest city global ranking, Kenya's capital has been ranked the best city to work in Africa and 12th globally. In 2021, expert city ranking revealed Nairobi moved up 50 places from last year's ranking after receiving excellent results in getting settled and finding houses index. According to the index ranking, expatriate ranked Nairobi as the best city in Africa and 6th globally in finance and housing index based on the overall satisfaction with their financial situation, disposable income, affordability, and ease of finding a house. So as you can see, Nairobi has really progressed, basically due to the accessibility within the city has greatly improved compared to some times back. I can remember the infrastructure development that has happened in the country has greatly helped in terms of ease of movement. May not be the best, but the projects such as the expressway that we currently celebrate, has really eased the traffic movement within the road from, an upward of up to 2 hours journey right now has been made to as short as 20 to 30 minutes max. So major projects within Nairobi such as Eastern Bypass, Western Bypass expansion, Nairobi Expressway, the other minor roads, the Langata viaduct within the city, and the numerous bridges, the footpaths around the city that has been constructed, has really helped to save number of lives that are walking on the streets. Has also really saved a lot of traffic. In the drive time to the different places has been greatly saved. I can remember that it could take so many hours to maneuver around Nairobi, and I would like you guys just to confirm on the comment section. These days, if you want to move to different part of the Nairobi, if it's from west side to east side, be it from, the other side of Mombasa Road all the way to the other side of Wayaki Way, the movement has been way better. I remember the road all the way leading to the Eastern Bypass, the first expansion, and brought in a lot of population to that side. It led to, the road was a disaster. It was a nightmare. You couldn't imagine the road before full expansion of Outer Ring. You can imagine how disastrous that road. Mombasa Road, actually, it was the greatest nightmare you could ever imagine, just moving within the city. And the infrastructure development that has been brought in by previous regime, especially Mwai Kibaki and former President Uhuru Kenyatta, has really, really greatly helped in terms of ease of movement within the city. Despite all the infrastructure development within the city and the ease of movement, Nairobi still ranked among the worst performing cities in terms of traffic time on the road. And there's been a very, very minimal improvement from the second worst city to drive about 4 years ago to the fourth worst city to drive in. So by 2022, and I hope by the more time goes, the ranking will get better. So Kenya ranked the fourth most congested country globally. Traffic congestion has been a major problem in most cities in Africa, with devastating effects from revenue loss to pollution. The countries have immensely suffered, and that is why there is a need for government to come up with a better solution for traffic congestion on the road. According to a recent report published by Number O Traffic Index, Kenya is the fourth country with the worst traffic congestion globally in 2022, with a traffic index of 256.16. Other African countries that were highlighted to have worst traffic crises include Nigeria, first globally, Egypt 6th globally, South Africa 13th globally, Morocco 45th globally, and Tunisia 59th globally. In Kenya, it has estimated that the country loses 100 billion shillings annually at the back of traffic congestion in this country's capital, Nairobi, with the notorious spending of a lot of time on the road. This has caused further inconveniences as the commuters have to spend more time walking to the required destination in their effort to beat the traffic while breathing polluted air. It is estimated that Nairobi has about 20,000 matatus providing commercial transportation services. The 2019 housing census report suggested that buses, trucks, lorries, and three-wheelers, commonly known as tuk-tuk, are the most used public transport in Kenya. This undermines the common perception that matatus are the main cause of traffic congestion in Nairobi. The report further suggested that the aforementioned vehicles are owned by 1.6% of all the households in Nairobi, compared to 12% of the households that own cars used for private modes of transport. What is the main cause of congestion in Nairobi? Various sections of the city road have been mentioned as key players in the congestion of Kenya's capital. The double parking, illegal bus stages, the lack of scheduled public transport system, lack of an elaborate non-motorized transport network, and private car operating as public service vehicle have been identified as a major cause of traffic in Nairobi Central Business District. So the government measures to combat road traffic, this include things like the expansion of Thika Road, Syokimau commuter train services, were estimated to have saved motorists 80 billion and 117 billion shillings annually, respectively, in terms of delay and wasted fuel. The construction of the Nairobi Expressway has decongested the city as well as boosted the economy of the country by saving millions of shillings lost in traffic every year. Some of the solutions suggested were a number of policy instruments can be used to manage traffic congestion. This includes the introduction of toll charges on major highways, the introduction of carbon tax to raise the cost of using motor vehicle, encouraging carpooling and ride sharing, and increasing parking fee within the city. From the report, it is estimated that Kenya is making slightly progress every year in alleviating traffic jam. The 2020 Numero report ranked Nairobi the second most congested city in Africa, with a score of 276 on traffic index. The average time spent in traffic was 56.94 minutes. In 2021, the country was ranked number 3 with a traffic index of 279.68. In government's bid to mitigate these, especially in the budget year 2021 to 2022, Nairobi was basically, I kept saying in my previous video, was a construction site. Everywhere you would pass, there was something that was under construction, be it the expressway, be it the Western Bypass, be it the Eastern Bypass, be it the NMS project within Nairobi CBD. There were cabros, there were footbridges. Like Nairobi literally became a construction site. If you're using Langata Road, there were footbridges under construction. There were the viaduct under construction. Like literally every road, every route you would pass, there was a construction site. So the year 2021 saw Nairobi turn into a key infrastructural site. Traffic jam in Nairobi are now estimated, as I said, to cost 100 billion every year, which would loosely translate to 11 million shilling per hour that the country is losing. To ease up the traffic, the government embarked on various projects that, when completed, would be a game changer in the capital of the 5 million people. This is Nairobi. Uhuru Kenyatta built roads, rail, but piled a whole load of debt. This was the key side effect of all these major projects that came with this. With all these projects, it came with a cost, and this cost will trickle down to everybody and successful government that will come in. So to his successor to deal with the huge debt and unhappy taxpayer already battling a galloping cost of living, President Kenyatta administration really relied on loans to build roads, bridges, power plants, standard gauge railway since the time he took office. On April 9th, 2013, newly sworn-in President Uhuru Kenyatta pledged to lead all Kenyans, those who voted for him and for those who didn't vote for him, toward the national prosperity firmly rooted in a rich and abiding peace. Close to a decade later, he has achieved some of these goals, but he is leaving his successor to deal with the huge burden of debt and unhappy taxpayers already battling with galloping cost of living. It was during Kenyatta's tenure that billions of dollars were pumped into the infrastructure project such as roads, airport, railways, energy and communication. According to the government figure, his administration has built over 11,000 kilometers of tarmac roads compared to about 2,300 kilometers built by the first three presidents, and that was by 2013. By 2013, Kenya had only tarmac about 2,300 kilometers, and Uhuru from that added about 11,000 kilometers. So according to the government figures, compared to 2,300 built by the previous three governments, the economy nearly tripled to 13 trillion shillings, basically $110 billion, from 4.5 billion shillings, translating to about $38.13 billion in 2013. While tax revenue more than doubled to 2.3 trillion in the 2021-2022 fiscal year, from 800 billion, which is about 6.7 billion dollars in the year 2012-2013. Critics argue that while Kenyatta put emphasis on physical infrastructure development, he failed to dedicate his energy to fight corruption, an issue that will cloud his legacy. In his reign, the national debt jumped to about 8.5 trillion. This is about $72.54 billion in May 2022, from only 1.89 trillion shillings. This is about $16 billion in June 2013, and this is according to data from the National Treasury. In the year 2022-2023 fiscal year, the government has allocated 1.3 trillion. This is about $11.77 billion towards debt repayment, comprising about 690.64 billion shillings. This is about $5.85 billion as interest, and 702 billion shillings, about 5.95 billion as redemptions. The former president justified his borrowing and said developed nations had to leverage on debt to grow their economies. And this is what he said: when South Korea achieved its economic miracle in a record 25 years, also achieved the rank of being the fourth most indebted country in the world, but did not call it debt. They called it using other people's money to advantage their cause, he said. I don't know how you guys see it. You can leave your comment. So towards the end of the year, President Uhuru Kenyatta requested the parliament to increase the country's debt ceiling to 10 trillion to allow the state to borrow 846 billion to plunge the debt deficit in the fiscal year starting July 1st. There was a lot of push and pull, but in the end, the lawmakers raised the debt ceiling to 9 trillion from 6 trillion previously in October 2019. President Uhuru Kenyatta's successor will require an average of 3.74 billion daily to repay the country's mounting debt. The infrastructural development that the former President Uhuru did has greatly transformed the country in so many ways, I can say, as in terms of revenue collection, in terms of even the economy side, the GDP. The country before it came in was about the 12th biggest economy in Africa, and right now we are the 6th biggest economy in Africa. And it's a big leverage to the incoming government. It's a give and take. I don't know what you guys can leave your comment on what you think about it. So in as much as there's a big burden to the incoming government in terms of running its operations on the daily basis, in terms of managing its costs and running new projects, the country is heavily indebted to do all these projects at once, especially right now that we're in a global crisis. The world oil and gas prices are off the roof. World grains, they are off the roof. Trade between different countries has become hard due to freight charges. And it's been a heavy burden to the current government of William Ruto. And one of the best things that I see all these, my personal view is, and this is what I really hoped to see the coming government focus on agriculture, because a country currently can't feed itself. If we start from the first basic item, this is maize production, which is this is our main staple food in Kenya. We require about 50 to 55 million bags of maize every year. But with the current state that we're in, low production, high fertilizer prices, this famine that has really hit the country in a bad way, and being a crazy burden to the government itself. Show me a nation that cannot feed itself, and I'll show you a nation that is in chaos. There is no greater threat to our national security than food. Agriculture sector in Kenya continues to play a vital role, despite the fact, I would say, in terms of Uhuru's government, apart from the corruption that was also rampant, agriculture was not given the enough attention that would have required. But other than that, I would say that was the major investment that has been done in the infrastructure in Kenya would greatly, in a big way that you can't even quantify, support a lot with the incoming government in terms of production. So right now, let's say you're having production of milk. I used to see farmers in Kinango pouring milk because they couldn't access delivery of the milk, to the centers, to the major towns, because the roads were bad. And this was affecting across the country. The impact has been made by the previous government in terms of infrastructure development is lifetime, and it will greatly boost the economy. And regardless of which government comes in, we still use Thika Road that was constructed by Kibaki and still greatly help. And road infrastructure development is usually like a mortgage or, buying a house. The return on investment is not like a one-off. It takes time. And so with such, I would say the impact may not be felt immediately, especially in a situation that we are in right now, where there is a lot of imbalance in the world trade. And, there's so many things that are around right now, the wars. And there's the most positive bit about all this, and as I mentioned earlier, show me a nation that cannot feed itself, and I will show you a nation that is in chaos. This is the situation where Kenya is right now. And it's been there, and the maize production has been fluctuating year by year. It's been over a decade where we've been unable to meet our demand. Country is really pegged on imports from mostly Uganda, Tanzania, Zambia, to an extent up to Mexico and Brazil. And the change that is, and with the incoming government, this is what President Ruto has clearly stated, that is not going to a borrowing spree like it was before, and is going to focus on agriculture. I think that will be the best thing for the country. In as much as we can't avoid borrowing completely, But I'm sure just having a plan to cut all this will be a big plus to the incoming government, because the country will always continue. We all live, but the country will always be here. So that is a very good strategy. In terms of farming, the focus on agriculture is everything. Like, the country without major investment on agriculture is a disastrous to the whole country. And Kenya is one of the biggest producer of tea, coffee, horticulture to the whole world. But these are not things that are consumable. These are not commodities that you cook. And most of this arable land are used to produce these premium items that we export to the world and give us foreign exchange. But in the end, there's a lot of lack of proper investment in agriculture for consumption for the country. And some of the major irrigation projects that were to be done in the country, such as in places like Tana River, all went down. These were major projects that would have really transformed the production in the country in a big way. Probably right now we'd be in a situation where we would need to export some of these items. Probably some of you can share what really happened to such projects, and a lot of incentives for farmers in the country, because right now the fertilizer prices are off the roof. We still largely depend on the rain-fed agriculture, which is a very bad thing. And the last bit before I go to the clear details is that on the point of GMOs, I'm really not clearly familiar. As a country, we usually still see GMO as something very foreign and health beneficial to most people. But this is a topic for another time. I have no clear details. You guys can leave it on the comment section. Your interest will really define how probably we can explore more on this. Is it a good idea? Is this something that is going to destroy our livelihood? So just leave your comment down below. The project Uhuru did, they're amazing, they're nice, they're going to be beneficial to the economy in the long term. The current regime and the incoming regime will ride on all these projects, despite all the politics underhand deal that was done. But in the end, it will greatly help the economy. The agriculture sector continues to play a big role in the rural economy. Agriculture is key to Kenya's economy, contributing 33% of the gross domestic product and another 27% GDP indirectly through linkages with other sectors. The sector employs more than 40% of the Kenyan total population, with more than 70% of Kenya's rural population, Agriculture in Kenya is larger and complex, with a multitude of public, parastatal, non-governmental and private sector. The sector accounts for 65% of the export earnings and provides the livelihood, employment, income and food security needs for more than 80% of the Kenya's population, and contributes to improving nutrition through production of safe, diverse and nutrient-dense food. The sector is also the main driver of the non-agricultural economy, including manufacturing, providing inputs and markets for non-agricultural operations such as building, construction, operation, tourism, education, and other social services. My biggest issue with the Kenyan agriculture right now, most of our agricultural land has been taken up by most of these export-oriented products, which greatly help the country in foreign exchange. But in terms of food security for us, you cannot eat some of these items, most of them actually. The commodities that we have, a big percent of the population still depend rain-fed agriculture. So there's a lot of plans with the current government to mechanize and support farmers, subsidies and most of this. And I hope it happens as soon as possible. And what I can say is people like Moi wouldn't have ruled that long if at the time the population wouldn't have had enough to eat. And what I can say is also, if you look at the most countries that are run by dictators, there's one thing that is always guarantee is the food. If you want to destroy a country, have an issue with the food and you realize how agitated your population is. Unfortunately, some of the barriers over the past decade have inhibited agrarian success in Kenya, such as political climate and environmental barriers. So the political and climate and the environmental barriers. Additionally, the climate of Kenya makes it susceptible to drought, flooding, and landslide. Roughly 83% of Kenya is arid and semi-arid. Increasing cost of agricultural input. The rise in price of necessary agricultural inputs such as fertilizer has been making it difficult for farmers to compete with importers. Policy. In a recent year, Kenyan government has begun implementing subsidies on farm inputs such as fertilizer. These subsidies have made local farmers equipped to compete in agricultural market. In addition, these policies in Kenyan government has been working on implementing educational programs. These programs provide farmers with a comprehensive understanding of agricultural diversification techniques, irrigation strategies. The climate of Kenya can make it exceedingly difficult to sustain agricultural growth. Therefore, education resources could improve the crop yields of farmers. So I hope you guys usually watch Shamba Shape Up to combat food insecurity and help raise the GDP in Kenya. Innovation in its agricultural sector needs to be met. These changes will require investment in crop-related technologies and resources either by government or international donors. And I hope these are technologies or modification that will have a lot of research in it so that whatever comes in will greatly help without interfering with the well-being of Kenyans. So the year 2023 may be one of the worst year in terms of maize production, and this is basically due to the very poor climatic condition that we've experienced in the year 2022. A lot of drought, the world politics in terms of availability of some of the key ingredients for farming, such as fertilizer. You know, Russia is usually among the biggest producers of key ingredients of fertilizer, and with the war, there was high fertilizer prices affecting so many farmers couldn't invest at that time until when the current president came in and they gave in subsidies. But before that, there was no subsidy to that level. We have crazy drought, especially in different parts of the country, at least it has started raining. The year 2023 will still be greatly affected with this year's production. You know, things like grains such as maize, wheat, the effect is usually felt the previous year. If this year is bad, the next year will be better. And my only hope is the current government to work and plan appropriately in the coming years, and that is from 2023 going forward, to implement all their strategies that they plan to do in terms of securing the country. You cannot have a country that cannot feed itself. Is one of the worst things that you can ever have in the world, and that is a part that I would love to see secured, farmers to be well compensated in whatever they do, so that it can encourage more people to do farming, and it can also greatly grow our export and, you know, balance out the foreign exchange earner. And from that also, you will still get leverage on the success of the previous government. You cannot take out of infrastructure from that. So please guys, leave a comment below what you do want to love to see the incoming government do or implement to secure the country in terms of food security, any major projects that you want to do. I don't believe the current government will do a lot of infrastructure development. If the government already plans to limit borrowing, the infrastructure development will be greatly limited compared to the previous government. But the emphasis on agriculture is also a very big point that can greatly change the economy in a big way, and probably in the second term, the economy will be more vibrant than it is currently. And with that, we come to the end of our day today. So please don't forget to subscribe, like, and share, and have a good time.